I believe in my neighbour, my fellow man, meeting up and struggling to understand our lives as best we can. The hall is a safe space where we can think, talk, learn, listen, laugh and dance. It brings out the best in us. So come along and see what we're doing with your own eyes. Don't be frightened.
Welcome to Kermode Uncut. Out on Monday on DVD is Jimmy's Hall, the new film by Ken Loach. Now I'm sure you remember when the film came out, Ken Loach made a lot of noises about the fact that he might want to retire. He's in his late 70s now, and everyone said, no, don't retire, you're still making vibrant films like this. And he kind of started backtracking almost immediately and saying, well, maybe I'll do documentaries. I think he's going to carry on. I think there's a lot more for Ken Loach to make, and it's really good because I'm a big fan of his. I particularly like Jimmy's Hall. It's a true life story about James Gralton in Ireland in the 1930s who incurred the ire of both the church and state by setting up this public hall where there was debate and education and music and, worst of all, dancing. Now, I think it's a really enjoyable, intelligent film. Some people, as always happens with the Ken Loach films, said, oh, well, it's dogmatic. It's Ken Loach basically just telling us a story, and we know how it's going to work out because of Ken Loach's politics. Now, this dovetailed into something I was talking about on the blog a few weeks ago, saying, can you think of an example of a movie which you really like, despite the fact that you really don't like its politics? Loads of responses to that question. Here's just a few of them. Let's start with this from Pablo Gilchrist. Starship Troopers. It's practically an advert for fascism and makes me feel really uneasy, but I still like it. Now, I have to say, I disagree about that. I actually think that Starship Troopers is a profoundly anti-fascist movie. You look at Paul Verhoeven's other work, things like Black Book, for example. I mean, Paul Verhoeven is very clear about how he feels about fascism. The genius of Starship Troopers is that it satirically undermines what it appears to be saying. It takes a source material, which is kind of problematic, and turns it into this great big satire of fascism. I don't think that that movie in any way celebrates fascism. In fact, I think it really cleverly attacks it. This is a slightly longer reply from Andrew Saladino. He said, personally, I love Richard Linklater's Before trilogy and its two wonderfully well-written characters, but due to the fact that I'm something of a conservative, I stress the lowercase c, have almost always completely disagreed with their leftist-leaning politics. However, it's not as though I shut down and get sniffy or snarky or even offended when the couple's rambling conversations turns to that of which we drastically differ on. On the contrary, I think one of the reasons I've enjoyed the film so much is because I've disagreed so much with the characters. This one made me smile. This is from Daisy. As well as James Bond, there are several carry-on films that I really like. They're all pretty sexist. Also, I like Calamity Jane. That's racist and sexist. Grease, sexist. Most traditional Disney films based on fairy tales are sexist because the fairy tales are sexist. I don't agree with vigilante justice, but do enjoy some revenge films. There seem to be plenty of films I don't agree with politically, but still love. Now, there was one title which came up several times in this discussion. This is from Bobby86. Looking back at the epic masterpiece Gone with the Wind, it is slightly shameful in 2014 to think that I could love a film which glorified slavery. I saw this again on DVD not long after seeing 12 Years a Slave at the cinema earlier this year, which made the ugliness of its politics even more painfully evident. Now, this is very interesting. A number of critics pointed this out because the film was re-released by the BFI and it was very close to the release of 12 Years a Slave. And it is certainly true that watching Gone with the Wind on a double bill with 12 Years a Slave, you really realise just what's wrong with that film. But here's another offering. This is from Lady K. Gone with the Wind, utterly awful politically, but I really love it. And I always watch it when it's on. And this finally from Spider Nick. I found Gone with the Wind totally offensive. I absolutely despised it and would never dream of watching it again. So perhaps I am someone who needs to empathise with the message to enjoy a film. The exception would be gung-ho films where the brain is left on standby for a couple of hours, such as the Rambo films, which I thoroughly enjoy. I think the bottom line with Gone with the Wind is this. To look at it now with a modern sensibility, and certainly to see it in the wake of 12 Years a Slave, there are problems with it which are pretty much insurmountable. But does that mean the film itself isn't still great? Does that mean the film itself still doesn't have things which are wonderful, which you can love, which you can embrace? Seeing it again on the big screen during that re-release, I was shocked by elements of Gone with the Wind. But I was also kind of knocked out by it. A couple of other short ones to end with. This from Empty Score. Taken is a good example of a recent-ish film with risible, xenophobic and fascistic politics mitigated by the enjoyment of the action. And this from Half 26, which I very much like because it's brief and to the point. On the Waterfront. Great movie. Don't agree with the politics.
I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody.